Sandy's ready.
This is the Board of Education public budget hearing, followed by a regular business meeting for which adequate notice under the Open Public Meetings Law was provided by written notice on March 19, 2008, to the Courier News, the Echo Sentinel, the Reporter, the Star Ledger, and the clerks of the Borough of Watchung and the townships of Long Hill and Warren. Can I get a roll call?
Mr. Binder?
Here.
Mr. Fallon? Mr. Falzarano? Mrs. Fechner? Mr. Horowitz?
In the eating cake in the personnel committee meeting. She's on her way.
Okay.
When she shows up, she's here.
I will note that when she comes. Okay. Mr. Horowitz?
You got cake.
Mr. Pepe?
Yo.
Mrs. Mandel?
Yes,
Here.
Mr. Sun? Dr. Yagged?
Here.
Dr. Seeley?
Here. Pledge of Allegiance. I've been asked to inform you all the flags are in this direction now. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, the United States of America,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Peter Fallon will not be able to join us tonight. He was pulled out, I guess, for a project that he's involved in, business related. I will remind everybody, I've had the opportunity to actually go back and look at a couple of videotapes, and I'll just come back to a couple of points that we've made in the past. Got to be careful of noise on the table, for one thing. This kind of noise, by the way, simple things as simple as that will drive people nutty on the videotape, because it comes through real loud and clear. Tapping on the table like that will certainly do it. The other thing is make sure you speak into a microphone. It helps out on the audio, but the audio is pretty good with what we have. We're trying some different arrangements from the table standpoint to help the video display. So you're seeing some change. We'll see some change over the next couple of meetings as we try to figure that out. Because the way we had it set up, we were too far spread, and we had a tunnel effect. It was kind of interesting. With that, we can move into the budget presentation. I just wanted to make a few statements before we get started on the budget presentation. This is the process for those of who are not familiar with it. It actually starts in the school system sometime in the October timeframe, soliciting feedback from the various departments and bringing together proposals and doing prioritization of those things, of the various proposals. It comes to the board and through the finance committee that's chaired by Mr. Horowitz, starts to see that material sometime in the late December, early January timeframe, and then goes through reviews of that in multiple meetings. This budget was first presented in the public, in a public presentation, and actually accepted by the board in the early February timeframe. And after that, it was again resubmitted to the board in the early March timeframe. And the reason for that resubmission is because we chose not to do any of the cap waivers. And as a result of that, then it made some minor changes in the budget. But so there were no cap waivers in the budget, and then basically what was adopted in the early March timeframe is what is going to be presented tonight. I'm not going to go into a lot of details of the budget in my opening comments here because it's going to be covered adequately by everybody else. But I just want to point out that the structure of this presentation tonight is we go through a presentation of the budget, and then I'll be given by Dr. Stromsen and Mr. Stiles. Dr. Stromsen is the superintendent, and Mr. Stiles is our business administrator. There will be a board discussion on the budget at that point. After that, there will then be opportunity for the public to speak with regard to the budget, and then there will be an action item with budget resolution, hopefully approving the budget at that point in time. And so that's the process that we will proceed for. In case you didn't pick it up, there's a lot of material over there that's specific to the budget that if you're going to try to follow the budget, it would be helpful for you to pick up. It has the details of the budget handouts and the agenda and some things like that. So with that, we'll start. Dr. Stromsen, are you starting?
Thank you. Yes, I am.
Okay. We'll start with the budget. Dr. Stromsen.
Thank you very much. Probably the hardest part of the whole evening will be figuring how to work the clicker here. So I make sure I get the slides advancing properly. First of all, I'd like to say thank you very much to the members of the Finance Committee and the members of the Board of Education for their hard work and dedication and commitment in developing a budget that is focused on students. This budget that is focused on students is a good budget. We have worked very, very hard to bring it in so that it is a budget that is within the state tax levy cap. And I thank all of you for your hard work on that. I also like to thank my administrative team, my supervisors and staff for being flexible, cooperative, and patient through this process.
Right arrow.
Clicker. I told you, clicker.
Does it have to be pointed to the machine or anything?
Not supposed to.
There you go. Do we
Technical difficulty.
do we borrow that, or do we buy that thing?
Maybe we
think
just
some,
rented
Does
it.
it have a warranty on it?
Some training is needed.
Batteries.
I always get you.
The one thing we didn't test.
Or just rehearsal.
Oh, you did? Okay.
That'll work good.
Everything was tested and it worked fine.
When it,
But
when
in
it
the
was
show,
tested.
it doesn't work.
Okay. The goals of this budget were to continue to enhance and refine the academic programs that we are offering here with no new programs. Another goal was to address our facility needs and to continue to infuse and maintain technology with the replacement of old equipment with new equipment, and also to effectuate efficiencies in our operation where we would be looking for every possible place to save money that would not impact students or programs. Considerations that were put in place were, of course, the state guidelines. The 4% cap on tax levy, 10% additional state aid, which we received, which we came out to be about $150,000 because we get very little state aid. And the fact that we were able to apply for cap waivers, we were eligible to apply for up to $300,000 in cap waivers. But in the spirit of the law and in the spirit of trying to keep the budget tight and focused on students and meeting their needs, we kept to the 4% and did not apply for any cap waivers that we were eligible for. Coming forward this next school year, we anticipate another 95 students. It is our smallest bump of growth in enrollment we've had in the last 4 or 5 years. The following 2 years, we will have larger growth, larger enrollment spurts. In fact, if we pick up only 7 more students this summer, we will hit the 2,200 student threshold. We also have to account for utility and facility costs. As you know, utility costs have risen enormously. I'm sure you see it in your own homes. It impacts us here as well. And of course, employee contractual agreements that must be accommodated through this budget. Other things that impact the budget are legislative mandates, special education costs. Those are not regulated by the state, especially costs for students in private schools. Tuitions may increase anywhere from 10, 12, 15% or more yearly. NJCUSAC, certain requirements that we have to meet the regulations that are proposed under that system, under NCLB, all of the different things. You've heard me talk about the end-of-course tests in biology and algebra. All of these things have costs associated with them. So these are the types of things that we had to take into consideration in terms of building a budget that was focused on students. Maintaining a high-quality education here. Just some brief statistics. 85% of our students who took the national AP exams qualified for college credit. 6% more took those exams than in years previous. Our average SAT tests in verbal and math were 11,148. 85% of our students participate in co-curricular activities, and 91% of our students go on to post-secondary education, with more than 26% of them going on to most competitive colleges as defined by Barron's. 98% graduation rate. 91% proficient on the HESPA, up from 82% only 5 short years ago. We exceed state requirements. Those are all the good things about us, and many more. A little snapshot of our enrollment from 2002 forward. As you can see here, the enrollment has continued just to climb, and those of you that have served on boards in the elementary districts have seen that growth coming because you've experienced it for the last 10 years. In this slide, what we use is the actual data of students that are part of this school. Students who are placed either in the school, receiving services here through us, or students that go to out-of-district schools for special programs. So that this budget must address. These are the needs that must be met. And as I said, 7 more students, and we're right at 2,200 for September. Not unusual for that to happen.
In order to meet the needs of a budget of a school that's focused on students, budgetarily we have staff needed for student growth. One of our most heavily subscribed areas here of interest are in the arts. We have added 1.6 teachers in the arts. The idea here is to provide opportunities for students in the context of the full range of programs available in the arts, in the fine, visual, and performing arts. 1.6 teachers is really a very small amount of growth in that area.
Fran?
Yes.
For those that aren't familiar with it, when you have a fractional, just explain to them
Yes,
what that
that's
means.
2 teaching periods. A .4 is 2 teaching periods, so it's 1 full-time person and additional 2 teaching periods.
3 teaching periods for this.
.4.
Oh,
Right. World language, I should say English, next, 1.4 also. All students take English in this high school for 4 years. So in order to meet the needs of these students moving through the program, this would be required for the growth that we expect. In world language, we continually see students' interest in taking more world languages and coursework to prepare them for college. Again, many of the most competitive colleges are looking for 3 or 4 years of world language experience on the student's transcript. In science, another .4 teacher to help us to implement Physics 1 integrated science curriculum, and then moving into the Physics 2 curriculum. So it will give all students a chance to have a physics course on their transcript, again, in anticipation of acceptances to more and most competitive colleges. Health and physical education, .2, 1 teaching section. Special education, mandates, drive special education, so we would need 1 additional teacher in special ed. So our total number of positions in this budget are 5 new positions. We also have included a half-time nurse's aide. And those of you that know, a big school has lots of requirements for students who have special health needs and medical needs. The state requires us to do far more extensive charting and reporting of these particular medical needs that students have. So a nurse's aide will be very helpful to us in terms of meeting those needs. We now have 2 full-time school nurses. This nurse's aide will augment that staff. I'm also proud to say that we have had a focus on technology here over the last 6 or 7 years, where we really try to build our infrastructure and really use technology seamlessly in the classroom. This year we are moving into a new student management software program from a SASE program, which I think you've heard us speak about before, to a program called Genesis, which is web-based, much more user-friendly, and will help us be able to move around with our student management information a lot more fluidly than we have been able to with SASE. We're also going to be moving from a program called Notify Quick, which is a way that we have of giving emergency information out to our families. We're going to be moving from that system to something called Honeywell First Alert, which will allow us to really bombard you in any way you'd like to receive the information, whether you'd like it in a text message, a cell phone call, a home phone number call. Anything that you give us in terms of a way to contact you, we will be able to use the Honeywell system to do so. We also are going to be looking for replacement laptops and desktops because the ones we began, again, I said 6 or 7 years ago, are coming to the end of their useful life period for use here by our students. And we also have some server and infrastructure upgrades to the tune of $21,000 to help us maintain proper security, firewall, and all of those types of backup. Yes?
Can you just go back to the prior slide one
Yes.
second? I think there's a clarification. When we say staff for student growth, where it's 5...
Overall.
Yeah, but it's not, as I understand it, we're not hiring 5 new people.
No, we're not.
I
That's
think
right.
there's an important distinction here because it's 5 full-time equivalents for salary.
There you go.
But there's no corresponding
Health benefits,
increase
et cetera.
in benefits,
Right.
whether it's Social Security,
Any
health
benefits,
et cetera.
right.
So I think it's important just to give a clarification as to how many net personnel increases will there be in teaching staff?
4. 4 actual personnel where that would require benefits.
Right.
That would be the net change. I'm just going back. Is that clear to everyone now? Yes.
But are some of those people the replacements for other people, or are these net adds?
I think
These
so.
are ads.
Net ads.
These are ads, yes. There would be additional people hired for those that have either retired or resigned. Those would still be in the budget. Anything else on this one? No? Okay, budget focuses on students. You can see the largest slice of the pie is on student services. Student services, regular education, special ed, support services, transportation, equipment, obviously takes the largest share of our resources. Support services, operations and maintenance, this is a 410,000 square foot building sitting on 100 acres. So there's quite a bit of operational and maintenance activities that need to be taking place on a daily basis. Administration and debt service make up the rest of that piece that's called support services. This budget provides the resources we need for our students. It's a good budget. Now, I'll call Tim up to talk about some efficiencies. Thank you.
This microphone's too tight, too close for my liking. I'm going to be eating it pretty soon. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Stromslin.
You see how big mine is.
Yes. Thank you very much. I am the business administrator of the district. I'm here to talk to you mainly about the pure numbers and some of the efficiencies. The first slide that Mr. Button. The first slide that I have will focus on some of the efficiencies that we work with year in and year out and are part of this budget here. You don't always hear about these because we don't always run out and advertise them, but at budget time we get to do that, so here goes. One of the things that we do quite a bit of are shared services. We are members of a shared service group with the Somerset County Office of Purchasing, the Somerset County ESC, that's the Ed Services Commission, the Morris Union Jointure, and on a statewide basis, we pool our resources with other school districts to purchase natural gas through the ACES program. We pool our insurance services with other schools to purchase liability insurance and workers' comp insurance. That program is known as SAFE. And by pooling our purchasing power together, we generally get better prices. We also take part in cooperative purchasing through the state contract. That is a statewide contracting source that allows us to purchase for lower prices. We have joint transportation jointures, what we call them, Watchung Borough specifically, and also we do some contracts with Greenbrook as well. And in this budget as well, we're doing that. The next slide, I'm going to get into just the meat of the numbers. On the operating side, on the expenditure side, one of the things that we've talked about quite a bit, and actually through finance we've talked about quite a bit, this is a snapshot of our operating expenditure budget for 08-09 and the changes from 07-08. The total increase is 6.1%. That's the total spending increase for our operating budget. Basically, that's $1.9 million over last year. Of that $1.9 million, the first two line items, salaries and benefits, makes up $1.5 million of that. Excuse me. When you add in utilities and operation costs and some of the transportation, you're up to about $1.7 million. So you can see we don't have a lot of discretion as to where we can add after that. You're only talking a couple $100,000, and we added those technology items, new teachers, those type of things. So with this cap, it was rather difficult to get to this point. This is a snapshot. This slide is a snapshot of the how the budget plays out on a pie chart. And again, you can see salaries and benefits, just like I described on the last slide, really make up the bulk of what we're talking about in our budget. And that kind of makes sense because we are a service industry. That is what we do. We provide a service. There are some obviously, Dr. Strum has brought up the building and operations cost, 400,000 square foot facility, 6.8% is operations and maintenance. Actually, I'd like that to be a little larger, but budgets are very tight these days. On the revenue side, again, the overall increase is 6.1%. A couple of things I do want to point out. Number one, the tax levy, that's the underlined items near the bottom, 4%. We did make a conscious effort to keep it at 4%. We could have gone beyond that through cap waiver process, but we chose not to. Second thing, the state aid. I think Dr. Stromsen brought it up, but it is 15%, and that includes another state aid category. But more importantly to note is that increase, that a couple $100,000 increase that's on that line over last year is 0.7% of the overall budget, which is less than 1%. So less than 1% of our total budget was the increase in state aid. So, it's nice that we got more state aid, but looking at the numbers, clearly we did not. And the next slide will show you that we have a very small percentage of state aid. So that, even though it's 10%, the state will tell you 10% increase. To us, think of it as a 1%, less than a 1% increase. And that obviously puts more of a burden on the local taxpayers.
You meant it's a 10% increase, but it's still less than 1% of the budget.
Right. I'm sorry. Thanks for clarifying. One of the things that the Finance Committee is keyed in on this year and going forward is the third line down, miscellaneous revenues. We are going to try very hard to be aggressive in getting other sources of revenue to lower the burden on the taxpayers. One of those is rentals. We have some other ideas coming up. We're looking at other issues that we can explore to bring in revenues. Obviously, interest is one of those as well. But in the months to come, we are going to get more aggressive as that goes on. And this is the slide I was talking about. You can see typical of an IJ type district, which Watchung Hills is. Economically, it's in the IJ range, which is a district factor group that the state assigns school districts. More affluent type district, you get into that IJ, they range from A to J. And in this particular district, you can see in most IJs, the larger portion of the budget comes from local tax levy. Total state aid is 5%. Tuitions, by the way, are primarily from Greenbrook, and Greenbrook pays this through their budget, through their property taxes. So if you really want to look at it, 70% plus the 17% really is a property tax-driven number. We have a small piece of surplus and miscellaneous revenues, and we'd like to obviously increase that miscellaneous piece. How do we compare to other schools? This is a list of school districts that are comparable, IJ-type districts, similar demographics, similar student performance. And as you can see by looking at the chart, we fare pretty good. We are the lowest of the group. These figures just came out roughly about a week and a half ago. These are the latest. They're a year behind. They're not on the 08-09 figures. They're on 07-08s. But obviously you see that we fare pretty well. And since our budget really is at cap, and it's unlikely that we'll be above any of these going forward, unless they had a catastrophic event in some of these other schools, which I doubt. And I hope not either. One of the things the Finance Committee really likes to talk about is the tax levy increases over the past 5 years. This particular slide shows you that we're on a downward trend in terms of tax levy increases. Now, this is important because this is what your taxes are figured on. Obviously, this is the lowest in the 5 years. We're at 4%, and that was one of the goals of the finance group. And going along with that, some folks like to look at what your operating budget, what your spending is from year to year. What this graph represents is the increase from one year to the next and how we fared over the past 5 years. As you can see, again, this is the lowest increase in our operating budget over the past 5 years. There is one different year in there. 04 to 05 to 05, 06 was very close, but still, this is the lowest one we've had over the past 5 years. And the tax impact. I haven't been at a regional. This is my first regional position. I got to tell you, the tricky thing with the calculation here is that you have 3 towns. You have a percentage split between the 3 towns that's based on values of each of the districts. And then you got to come up with the average homes and that information that you get. But that's the difference with a regional, is that it's split 3 ways, and that split changes. It changes based on the values of the homes in that area. So if it changes, it may change the increase or decrease that particular town has. And without going into too much of that, just by looking at this, what we're talking about on an average home is an increase in Warren of $122 on an average home of $714,000.
That's an annual increase?
That is an annual increase, thanks. The annual decrease, or really almost a flat piece for the Watchung folks in Watchung, is a negative $41. And that, again, that's primarily flat. Long Hill, on the average home of $390,000, that would be an annual increase of $106. The split, why I brought up the split, because it did change, and we did get this question in some of our groups. It did change from last year. Essentially, Long Hill went up a little bit with that split, meaning their values went up, according to the state. Watchung actually went down in comparison, and Warren was almost flat, a little bit down. So that plays into the question of why aren't these increases all the same? Because the split between the 3 different towns changed. And I hope I'm clear on that one, because that was very hard to go through and explain. But that is, essentially, when you look at it, it's not one town's getting treated differently than the next. Is that the state, when they use their valuations, they change them each year, and it's based on the property values of that town.
Tim, I had a question. Was something maybe dropped off the bottom of each section? It says the rate per $100 of assessed value. Were you intending to show that number on the left-hand side of that table?
That's the pennies on the right. So
what is the rate per $100 of assessed value for the 3 towns?
Oh, I don't have the, maybe it did drop off.
It looks to me like it might have been.
Yeah, the sense.
It might have been there, but it didn't make it onto the printing.
Yeah, I do. I have that with me.
I think that's in the, the big handout.
Yeah.
It's in the detail.
It's like on page 35 or 36.
Actually, on page 35, 36, and 37. Thanks for pointing that out, Bernie. 35, 36, and 37, the actual rate is calculated for each town. It gives you the total tax rate. As a matter of fact, on that document, it also tells you on the bottom how to calculate your own property tax increase based on your house. This information also, I do want to tell you, is provided to you. It's on our website. Thanks to Brian and Danny, they did a wonderful job. It looks like a table of contents. You go to a budget, there's a little budget link, and it goes to like a table of contents where you can get each of these areas on that website. But also you can have it here, too. Actually, and while we're at it, why don't I go through those rates? I'll just announce them, and then we can go from there. For Warren, the 2007 rate was .317. 2008, it is .336. That is a .019 increase, or close to 2 cents, 1.9 cents if you want to look at it that way. For Watchung,
Just to sort of extrapolate that, and that's when all's said and done, if your house in Warren is assessed, or valued, pardon me, at $714,390, your increased taxes based on this budget be $122.
that's correct, in Warren.
The increase in your tax.
The increase, the annual increase.
Unfortunately, it's not the whole, right?
It's not the whole, but it is.
Needless to say.
It is the increase. Right?
For Watchung Borough, that's essentially flat. 2007, .304, 2008, .303. That's a decrease of .001, less than a penny. And in Long Hill, oops, got it. It went from .430 to .456, an increase of .025, 2.5 cents, if you want to look at it that way. Okay, this slide is also in the handout on our website. It just lays out the places and times to go for the annual school election. That is on April 15th.
Tim, before you, I just want to go back to the prior slide, if you could, for just 1 second. I just want, the tax rate is set based on the valuation of the town as determined by the state. And we then get that formula, which then is used to divide our budget up and then distribute it to the 3 towns, which
That's
then
right.
determines what their share is then for that budget during that year.
Yeah, that's right. The information is provided by the state of New Jersey to evaluate the valuation of the towns.
valuation of the properties,
That's correct.
which then is used to determine the share that each town has for to absorb from the school budget.
That's correct.
Okay.
I got through that one. The ballot questions. The ballot questions we have are 2. One is the budget. Just a note, here on the slide I've broken it out by town or borough. You don't see that on the ballot. The ballot has the entire tax levy. That is by law. The county clerk's office has us do it that way. Essentially, each town, you're voting on the entire budget of the school. This is just for informational purposes. That's the breakdown by town. And then there's the candidates, the second, 1 seat for each town. In Warren and Watchung, we have 1 candidate, and in Long Hill, we have 2 candidates.
Tim, so what you're saying, in Warren, for example, if I heard you correctly, you'll say yea or nay for a $25 million budget, but Warren's share on the ballot would say $14,300,000?
No, actually, the ballot will not have the 14 million on there. It'll only have the 25.
It'll just
All
say
3 towns, it'll say
it's
the 25.
There's not, it doesn't
Doesn't break
state,
it down.
is that right, Fran?
It's one school district that's comprised of those towns.
No, but I know, but it
They don't
doesn't
break it
say
down.
They
the
won't break it down.
municipal, each town share.
No, it does not do that.
And that's a requirement
That's a
by
legal
law.
requirement.
Whatever it is, we have no discretion in that. We just do what every other district where there's a a regional situation, right?
Right.
That's correct. And just one note on this, it doesn't, going back to that tax calculation, that's done on a calendar year, whereas this here is a school year. So that's where it gets tricky, too, because this isn't where the taxes on that previous calculation are using these numbers. It's essentially using half of this number. 2008 portion of this number and half of 2007-08's budget. That's confusing, but that's reality.
Tim, can this breakdown be posted at the polling sites, or is that illegal?
I don't believe so. We inquired about that. Bob Rader, when he was here last year, inquired about that, and it has to be posted as the school district's budget. The budget for the school district is 25 million plus.
So the only way people will know that is if they go to the website or
Right.
see this handout
They
or
can see
something like that. Okay.
And do remember that it's the compilation of the total number of votes. It does not break down Warren, Compasset, and Watchung-Quinn, or vice versa.
Right.
Just as a total. Once we became regionalized, even though the tax breakdown may be at a different percentage per town, it's still, we are one school district. We all have to get behind the school district, and our kids are no longer coming from this town, that town, that town. Each one wants to pay for it or not pay for it. So that's why that one number has to go up there, and the breakdown numbers are really unimportant in terms of getting people behind you.
Does it say any, I don't remember every year you just vote for these things. Does it say anywhere in the ballot question, even though it doesn't say Warren is this, Long Hill's that, Watchung is this of the 25 million, does it say, is there any language in the question that says, you will be paying your percentage, pro rata, share? I mean, is there any way people could be confused thinking that in their town, of the three towns, I think that's what you were getting at a little bit, Lou, that they think, oh my God, we're paying $25 million if we live in Warren, or $25 million if I live in Long Hill, or 25 in Watchung.
That could certainly happen, and that was one of the reasons why we tried to advance that last year in terms of putting it on the ballot in a different format. Was not.
Do we have any? Is this thing all? Do we have any discretion in selecting wording that we could place on this ballot?
Unfortunately not.
No, this is it.
Not unless there was some legislative change that would permit us to do that. And that is not the case.
No, this is it, because we checked with the state and the county clerk's office on both, and no.
It has to be information through your local newspapers that explains the budget, and our mailings that explain
Right.
the budget, and the website today to explain the budget.
Does it even say in the question? I mean, I seem to remember, it said, on our $25 million chunk, does it say that Watchung Hill's regional, well, it's the words, it's a regional high school, and I mean, is there any language that even implies, if you can't state it, that this is borne by the the three towns equally? Well, not equally. I mean, because you have Greenbrook situation. I mean, not equally.
Not equal.
No, what I meant to say is that the cost is a shared cost.
Well, essentially
Can
not.
you put in any wording shared among the towns, in the regional high school system?
No, actually the only additional language that we're allowed to put on is that if we are over the core curriculum, over the T&E, that we have to put on that we are over the T&E. Essentially, it's a statement that says we have programs that are above and beyond the core curriculum content standards, and that's essentially it. That's all we can put on there.
After 50 years, I don't think it's a problem. I think people should know that they send their children to vote on a regional.
You know what? It's you'd be surprised what's a problem.
Honestly, I asked the same question when I came, and I said, well, wait a minute, does that mean all three towns now are going to think that they're going to have to pay $25 million, but essentially...
I've been doing this for a long, long time, ever since it's been a regional high school. But the question, and if you say it's not, it's not.
Yeah.
I mean, if you concluded, or it's been told to you that it is what it is, it'd be a lot better to lose question and to all we're saying is that this is a shared amongst the three what do we call it? Three receiving and one sending district. I mean, it's a shared cost amongst the towns that send their kids to the school.
Right.
But
That's what it is.
Yeah.
If you were to take this slide and just put it in the paper and make it a general information on the website and all, then that's the best we can do, is to get it out there at least.
Maybe to post it on the front page of the website if we could, so people would see it easily, so they didn't have to go to the budget, just so it became knowledgeable that this is how it's breaking
Well,
down.
one of the things, I mean, to interrupt you, we have this, we'll discuss this flyer here that we send out. Maybe there is a way, in squeezing it in somehow, I don't know, that, this is the budget, and then you could put, that it's either you want to put it shared cost among the 4 towns, or you can, whether you think it's helpful or not helpful to state, what's Greenbrook paying next year, 6-7 million?
We had a quasi-discussion about this with some other groups that we've been speaking to, and it's funny, some people see it as a positive, some see it as a negative. In other words, someone, let's say from Warren, might say, well, why do we have to pay $14 million where Long Hill or Watchung, they're only paying $5 billion? So it can work against you, too, in that sense that, when we basically had that discussion, we felt it was best to try to explain that there is a share, proportionate share, based on the value. But the idea that it's one school district and $25 million plus is what's necessary to operate the school district for all the students coming from Warren, Watchung, and Long Hill, essentially.
Well, you said that, but I don't see anywhere, on this handout frame that says that.
It isn't on the flyer. It's just in this.
No, I know, but no one can see that.
This is the official, the flyer is the official budget newsletter. What's in that flyer has to mimic what's on the ballot question, and try to explain in the Q&A what the budget entails, the tax impact, etc.
Listen, I mean, you with that inside, first of all, does this get sent out in color?
No.
I mean, now there's just because.
Well, actually, I'll say no, but with the yes qualifier. The photos and most of the print is in black and white. The banner, like with the top part of that, it's like a goldish color.
Did you see page 2, things that are blotched out? Does everyone see that?
It comes up.
Is that's going to be that'll bleed through so you can see the underlying numbers?
Yeah,
Okay,
in black and white it doesn't work.
Is that okay?
Yeah, we just black and white copied it for you for this evening.
Listen, maybe you could just, if you think it's a good idea, Frank, Watchung Hills Regional High School, serving Warren, Watchung, Long Hill, and Greenbrook communities. People, I mean, that's
We'll look at it.
saying it.
We will. We will look at it. Thank you.
All right.
Just before we get to the questions, just a acknowledgement of not only the Finance Committee, which obviously did a lot of work on the budget, but the other committees as well. A lot of the other ones were included in the budget process, the B&G Committee, the Personnel Committee. I know the Community Relations, sorry. To name a few. Negotiations, obviously, there's been discussions there. So, in terms of the administrative work, obviously every administrator of the school is involved, but also the board members through their committees, and thanks to the committees for their work and their analysis of the budget. And on that, that note, I will open the floor for questions, or if you want to open the
Why
floor
don't we
for
just
questions.
bring this into a board discussion, open question and answer if you want to at that point in time, so we can kind of move forward. Vernon, you had a question?
No, I'll wait till the discussion.
Was part of the question, okay. You want
Did you want to hold all the discussion until a little later?
Doesn't matter. We can do discussion and Q&A all at the same time.
I'll wait.
Okay. Any questions then that you want to ask of Dr. Strauss and Mr. Stiles?
Page 31, where it shows you the staff additions, does
Make sure you-
that number,
make
does
sure
that
you speak
number
into the
include
mic
the
We're in this.
benefits and stuff and health?
I just want to point out that the reference is the budget brochure, which has been posted on the website. It's what Mr. Stiles referred to, so you can gain access to that page if you so choose. And if you're here, they're handed out. So page 31 on that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
The number that's shown there, the 361, does that include the benefits and everything
Yes.
for those?
It's broken out under each area so that you can see what positions
Right.
have.
Okay, all right, good. And then the other question was on 34, just to note that that capital project is for facilities within the structure
That's right.
that
That's
we're
correct.
consolidating and making room.
That's correct.
Thank you.
It's not a new addition.
No,
It's
not
new.
at all.
Not a new
No,
addition.
no.
No.
And
That's
that's
it.
actually in anticipation of students 2 years from now.
Right.
That's correct.
And Laura?
I just have a comment that, can we have, I know this information's on the website, but can we also do an email blast with a link to this as we get closer to budget time?
Great idea.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Bernie?
Yeah, I'd like to just take a look at that one that breaks down the operating revenues. And I noticed that in
Can you
between the
direct
two,
us to a slide?
on
Or to a-
page 5 of the slides, that I noticed in the first line that we're adding a lot to this year's spending taken out of surplus. It's about $342 million. I also note that in our...
Well, not quite. We wish.
Well,
Not-
I'm
not
just saying...
You said
that
342.
It's a budget.
You said 342 million.
Well, thousands.
Oh, we should be so lucky.
It would be delightful.
And I also noticed that on our tuition, on the miscellaneous, we're forecasting another 195,000. That's a total of 537,000. And what that means is that the only way we survived this year, spending 6.1% with a 4% cap, is what I'll call, one-time or hopeful revenues. My comment really deals with next year. You don't expect to have anything like this, an increase next year. So if we have the same pressures of increasing costs, increasing benefits, and increasing salaries, you thought this year was tough? It's going to be a lot tougher next year. So I just think that, all the good work that was done is great, but we're looking at something of a more difficult problem next year.
Well, the only comment I would make is the miscellaneous revenue. I would disagree on that. I don't believe that that's a one-time.
Well, do you expect a similar increase next year?
Yeah, no, I think that we're in that range. I think we may not have that increase. Might not go
That's
from
what I'm pointing out, that
And
once you
that-
set the budget for this year,
Yeah.
if you don't have any increases in the following year, you're not going to have a difference between the cap and the spending increase.
Yeah, theoretically, that's correct.
I'm just saying, I'm glad you...
Yeah, well, sure. I mean, the biggest issue with the budget cap, the way it's played out, is that you really want to avoid a one-time hit on anything, on both sides of the budget, both on the revenue side and the appropriation side. So I think if you can balance those things out, which our budget does, we have some capital items in there that we can offset against some of those revenue increases.
Like the technology, for example, with the $240,000 roughly, that's a one-time expenditure that wouldn't be there also next year, which
That's
would
correct.
help offset some
That's
of
true.
that.
That's correct.
But I just want to underscore that we have a $700,000 increase in one line, the benefits. That's almost
That's right.
half of all the whole increase this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're also hoping next year, what did we put, 15% increase?
Yes.
I mean, listen, it's not a problem that's just Washington Hills High Schools to confront. I mean, virtually, every business, every school district, every government entity, in the United States. I mean, I'm not saying it's it is wishful thinking, but sure, to heck, hope that next year our benefits don't go up another 15%, meaning 30% in 2 years.
Right.
I mean,
It may be wishful thinking, because we've seen somewhere between 12 and 17 for as many years as I've almost been associated with boards. I mean, it's been a pretty steady drumbeat of increases, and you're right, hopefully it will come into control. I would say something about the technology. We probably will have technology spends of comparable, not increases, but of comparable magnitude over the years, because we're replacing computers that were bought 6 years ago, and next year we're going to have computers that are going to be still in that same 6-year time frame. And we're going to have to upgrade those or replace those, because that's about the useful life of most computer systems. And so I wouldn't expect to see those technology spends change a lot over the years.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments at this point in time on the budget? Any other comments? Okay, hearing none, let's move on. that terminates or ends the board discussion on the 2008-2009. I wouldn't want it to be reflected that the entire board discussion has been held in the last 5 minutes or 10 minutes of this meeting. There have been at least 2 other meetings before this and numerous committee meetings in advance of this one where this budget has been discussed a lot, as well as many meetings of the administration and the staff here to discuss the budget. With that, we can open it up for opportunity for public comment on just the budget presentation. If you came here to discuss other agenda topics, we'll get to that. It'll be in the next section, but we want to get the budget item. This is the budget hearing, so we wanted to make sure that we got through those items. If you do wish to make a comment, please come to the podium, give us your name and address, and you have 5 minutes.
I'm Tony Adario from Marchon. I have a question on the average cost per student that will come up with 12,000 and change, and it goes up to 16,000. What do you divide that number by? The number of students into what expense? The total expense of $36 million or $26 million that is being assessed to the towns?
It's that calculation is actually done by the state. It's the comparative spending guide. It is not on the entire budget, meaning the debt service and all of that. It's the operating budget less transportation.
Yeah, but in my view, it's misleading because if you're spending $30-something million and you divide it by 2,100 students, you don't come up with 12,000 and change. Okay? But people have been asking that. How come we're spending 12,000 per student and yet our budget or our assessment is $5 million, whatever the number is? And of course, I know better. Divided into something less than what we're spending per student. And people don't know that, by and large, okay? And I said, well, something's wrong. And, whether the state does it or mandates that, I find it, totally false on the part of the state and everybody else that, that ties into that aspect of it. I don't know that you can do anything about it, but I'm going to speak out to the citizens and tell them when I run into them what the numbers are.
So it also doesn't, right, you take out special ed from that?
Yeah,
I mean, we spend $2 million a year on transportation,
Yes.
$2 million a year on special education, and I think our debt service this year, on the new construction is the principal and interest a little more than about $2 million.
$2 million.
$2 million. So $6 million right there.
But that expensive is part of educating the students because you needed it to enlarge the facilities, to upgrade the facilities and whatnot. That's part of educating the students. It's not ongoing maybe because in 20 years or whatever the debt service goes out of business, it's still there. So it's misleading as far as I'm concerned.
Well,
It's a fair enough point. Did you have anything else, Tony?
Don't the other towns, though, use the same numbers that we use? They're spending $16 million per student?
16,000, yes. That's why we show it, because it's comparative data.
It's comparative.
Spending 20,000.
It's a good chance they're spending a lot more.
Incidentals out of there, whether
Right.
special services or debt services.
the key is that number is not created by this school. It's
a state-
It's
it's a state calculation.
advised to us by the state. We don't have any. We don't calculate.
And the link is actually on our website.
But when I talk to the educators now, the track from time to time, I'll ask them more.
But if you don't,
Thank you, Mr. Dario.
if you don't have the same formula, if each borough would change it, those who don't have to
Right.
transport, then you have no way, then it's apples to oranges. This way, at least we think it's close to apples to apples.
As long as you understand what the calculation is and how it's done and the things that are included and the things that are excluded, then you understand what it's based on, and you would then come to the conclusion that was brought here, which is it's not the total number divided by the students, it's some pieces have been taken out of that. And it's a fair enough point, but it does provide us with the comparative data between towns. It's what we have
By the way,
divided.
to what Tony asked and what Sandra just said, if you think about it, where you say, okay, we don't include, or the state doesn't include the $2 million a year for the new school. I mean, before we had an addition, we didn't have that $2 million expense. Another district might have had $3 million expense, or it might be an Abbott district that the state just gave them $200 million. So to try and at least have some type of level, sane playing field where you could at least extrapolate some number, where you can use to compare A to B.
Some
Right.
of those other systems are topless, really. They're spending 16,000 per student.
Listen, some people would think, and I'm one also, think that the fairest system would probably be if you had a $30 million school budget and 2,000 kids, and if you have 4 districts sending kids, each district pays $15,000. But that again is not our decision.
Okay. Any other public who wishes to make comments at this point in time? Hearing none, let's move on to the next part of this. We have one action item on which is specific for the budget resolution, and then from that, after that, we'll move into the regular meeting with reports and presentations. We need a resolution. Rob is the chairperson of the Finance Committee. Would you like to read the resolution?
I would. So at 5?
5, front page at the bottom. And it does not...
Yes.
You want me
Continues
to
on to-
include, Tim, all the numbers, or just resolved?
I think just the resolve.
I think the
part
resolve is...
would be fine.
Okay, you want me to give the total or not even?
Yeah, Warren.
Resolve, the Board of Education approves the 209 school district budget in the total amount of $36,474,460, and the local tax levy to support the budget. As
Second.
follows. Total of $26,988,036. Thank you, yes, be nice.
Okay, I'll second.
We have a second. We have moved and second. Any discussion on this? Can I get a roll call vote?
Mr. Binder?
Yes.
Mr. Falzarano?
Yep.
Mrs. Fechner?
Yes.
Mr. Horowitz?
Yes.
Mrs. Mandel?
Yes.
Mr. Pepe?
Yes.
Dr. Yaget?
Yes.
Dr. Seeley?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, with that, we can move on. First of all, before we move on, I'd like to thank everybody who's worked so tirelessly on the development of the budget this year. I think we've gotten to a good point here. With that, we can move on to the reports and presentations. Can we start with you, Dr. Stromberg?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Seeley. Basically, my reports this evening will focus on several things that have been happening in the district. As you know, we have the ongoing celebration of our 50th anniversary. I'm pleased to report that we've raised $4,205 in donations for the garden that will be planted in the front of the building in May. That's really just phenomenal in a month's time to get that level of support. We also are coming up upon our Hall of Fame induction, which will be on April 12th, right here in our atrium. We have a sock hop coming up in May. And in June, the culminating event will be the triathlon and the community picnic. So in one way, I'm sad to see the 50th anniversary go, but it's been very, very invigorating and bringing all members of our communities together. It's been just a wonderful experience. In the area of athletics, a few things to report to you. We received an email from a parent of students in Hillsborough who happened to be riding on the train, the New Jersey Transit train, to, I should say, home from the hockey game on Saturday, this past Saturday. You may know that our students were involved in the state championship in hockey at the Prue Center Arena, which was very exciting. At any rate, this parent took the time to send us an email to tell us what marvelous behavior the students exhibited on the train. She said obviously they were not elated because of the outcome of the game, but they were very respectful. They spoke well to each other. She said she knew they were students from Watchung Hills because many of them had the garb, the identifying warrior wear, and she just wanted to reach out and tell us how impressed she was with their behavior, coming back from what must have been a very disappointing experience. And on that, our hockey team did make it to the state championship, an outstanding season for them, a valiant effort. However, they did fall in that final game, but we're very proud of them for what they accomplished this year. They really did very well.
By the way, in the 2 prior games, they beat Ridge?
I think it was 1-1.
Oh, so this was the rubber game, Lou?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
1-1.
And both games were decided by 1 goal, so.
It was
neck and neck.
Another, on athletics, I'm pleased to report to you that one of our girls' basketball players, Jessica Zigarelli, is named Player of the Year for Somerset County. A wonderful honor for her. We're very proud of her. She's been a very tenacious and wonderful basketball player for our team. In the area of academics and awards, to mention that we have 5 National Merit finalists. These students will be sharing in over $33 million worth of scholarship money that will be available to them for a their college placement. And our students placed in the North Jersey Regional Science Fair recently, where they presented posters on a variety of topics that they have been studying and working on this year. Last year, we had 1 student win an award at that same science fair. This year, we had 6. So I think we are definitely making some real strides there. So that concludes my remarks. Dr. Seelig, thank you.
At this time, I don't have any comments. I will later when we talk about policy and in the board discussion. Mr. Stiles, do you have any other comments now that you've talked all about the budget?
Just one. I recently reached out to our legislative offices. The Paid Family Leave Act is on hold at the moment, but it does appear likely that it will pass. Again, that was their opinion, but it certainly looks like it's going to pass. So it's something that we're going to have to. We can make some noise. Hopefully, we can make some more noise. We already have. We can, make some more phone calls. I can tell you that the group that represents these communities is opposed to the bill, but they do feel that it will pass. And I think Dr. Stromsen had a meeting with the governor, not personally, but with all the superintendents, and it appears that he is in favor of that bill.
As a personal investment in it, I believe.
Yeah. So, unfortunately, that may pass. So.
Okay. Any other comments?
None.
Okay. Dr. DeGancy's not here tonight. You
his.
covered his material with the athletic.
Taking the night off.
The student representatives are absent also this evening. We'll move on to committee reports. It looks like we have, it's been a very busy committee time, it appears. I would just make an observation. It was something I was talking with Tim and Fran about. We need to schedule our committees so that they don't all occur in the last week right before the board meeting, because it makes it very difficult for them to get everything ready also, because at the same time that they're trying to do the committees, they're also trying to prepare for the meeting and getting material out. So we're going to have to try to schedule things and just space them out a little bit so they have some relief during that period of time right before the meeting. So it'd probably be better if we had some of these committee meetings occur like this week, like right after this meeting, over the next couple of days, so they can spread things out a little bit. It's just a scheduling thing. We'll figure it out. With that, why don't we move on to, it looks like we have finance and operations, personnel, negotiations, buildings and grounds, curriculum, policy and regulation, and then community and business relations. Did all those groups meet?
No.
No, we didn't. No.
And Tim,
We've got to
I'd
get
like to
this-
give a report, but
Well, wait a minute, you didn't meet, but you're going to give a report, right?
Can you send out for what works for you and Fran next week, and we'll try and get back on track, because I think
Okay.
we're caught up with the budget.
So you took off, having completed the budget, you took off the week, right?
We're in
Okay. So, all right, that's the finance and operations. Personnel?
Yes, we met on the 17th. We talked about the goals from the CSA for Part 1 of the CSA evaluation. The committee reviewed the goals and the goal progress and formulated that with Fran into a document that was then sent out to the rest of the board for comment. Those comments are due back. If you haven't gotten those back to Paul and myself, please do so. I think we've gotten many of them back. We also talked about director of operations. That a candidate is in the process of being interviewed, has been interviewed, and hopefully the committee will schedule a meeting the next week to bring that candidate forward to the committee and then to the board. We also talked at that time of a director of guidance, and nothing was forthcoming with that. However, we did meet again today prior to this meeting, again reviewed the process of the CSA evaluation, and Paul's going to be talking a little bit more about that under board discussion. We talked about the process and timetable, and again, a director of operations person will be brought forward, but also this time there is an inkling of a director of guidance person,
A ray of hope.
a ray of hope, as Fran put it, that hopefully will be brought forward to the Personnel Committee next week. There's interviewing going on right now, but other than that, it's just a little bit too soon to talk about it. And then there's also an organizational chart, a draft one that's being distributed again this evening that we've looked at in briefly as the Personnel Committee, and we'd like to have everybody in the board take a look at it, have a chance to get comfortable with it so we can bring it up for further discussion. That's my report. Unless there's any questions.
Looks like the March Madness betting pool chart there.
Not exactly.
Is that it?
And we're hoping that
does
the
look like
directive
the
of guidance,
these teams.
we're hoping that the directive of guidance comes to the final.
Too bad you had
spot.
Georgetown there, but
And if I just may add one statement about this, as mentioned in the report that I provided to the board last week, there is no budget impact as a result of this.
Say that again,
Chart.
Fran?
No budget impact as a result of this chart.
So any changes, what you're really saying is any changes that may appear on this chart relative to the current organization don't create any budgetary change.
Correct.
Are a lot of these things, like for Tim, I mean, are some, and for you, I mean, sort of statutorily required under your purview?
No.
No?
The only statutory requirement, I believe, is me.
I think he's the only thing that we need by law.
We have, the two statutory requirements are here.
No, I mean all those
Yeah, I don't
people.
think
There's
that's what
nothing,
Nothing under there, I think, is, as Tim just answered.
Well, I think you need the facilities director. I think you do need that. The person in that position has to have a certificate.
The license.
It has to have a
It's not-
license.
it's not
There's certain
statutory
certificates that are
requirement.
required, but the organization can be anywhere.
That's correct. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's correct.
I mean, that person could report anywhere.
But outside of the two people, you're right, outside of the two of us, it's...
Okay, with that, anything else, Jerry?
Yep.
Okay, Peter's not here for negotiations. Bernie, do you have anything that you might want to add on
Just briefly,
negotiations?
we met today. We're going to prepare for a meeting tomorrow. Actually, we met yesterday, too.
You also met yesterday.
2 days in a row.
Yeah.
We've been doing some work on the side with Tim on numbers and trying to understand where we stand. And we have a meeting with the association tomorrow evening.
Okay, thank you. Anything then with buildings and grounds, though?
Yeah, we met. We had Mr. Saratella and Chris Bick from the outside portion of the facilities at the meeting, and we discussed some problems that came up over the winter with the sidewalk and the curbing outside, and they came up with a game plan on how to address it out of existing maintenance monies. And also, there was a sidewalk issue and when it snowed, and they've come up with an idea on how to address that so the kids aren't tromping through the snow and slipping, possibly getting hurt. The new signs are up all over the campus. They're pretty nice. They did a nice job on those. They really did. The Flex Media fence is down and installed on the varsity baseball field. They had a first game down there today, scrimmage on it, and Nick Saratella is working on the person to do the ads, collect the ads for that. And then we have an update for Cabot Electric is almost done. They're going through a small array of punch list items, but no funds will be released to them without all the necessary materials that Russ Teller needs for the facility maintenance operations. So, and our attorney is making sure that the fire alarm system, we received our NFPA 72 certification. The local fire official, though, would like us eventually to have the entire system tested, to integrate the new and the old, to make sure everything's working accordingly. And we're addressing that and getting an estimate on that. That has to be done annually anyway. So we're just trying to get the timeline for that to satisfy his request. We had York on site. They're coming back in April. They're still working back and forth with the warranty issues on all the units and the startups. And we're still having some HVAC control issues. We have some warm rooms, some cold areas. They're still tracking that stuff. A lot of it's balancing. There's still some units that aren't working. They're trying to fire them up. Most of it's been control issues. And I'm trying to see here. Pit lift, no change. Still going back and forth with DCA. The TV studio, the plans were approved for the fire rating. Now we're just waiting for a game plan on how to achieve that. It's just some fire dampers and some ceiling tiles that have to be changed. So it's not a huge cost, but we're just coordinating that with Tim. And then the tile floor, we're still moving forward on that to make sure we try to get that done for the summer. And I believe that is coming out of the back charge to the construction project, so that's not part of the budget. So everybody understands that. And we're still shooting for the summer months to do that. And that's about it.
Laurent, this is directly your committee, but when I was coming in today, the kids, I guess, from the varsity baseball team were done with the practice, and just pulling out, and right behind me, one of the kids, got in his car and in the parking lot really was going pretty fast. I don't know if this is a particular problem, if that you've seen, on the campus speeding, and if it is a problem, other than posting signs and enforcing and it could be a kid, it could be a parent, it could be a visitor. I mean, do you feel if it is a problem that speed bumps, placed up and down would be a good deterrent?
I was here Saturday, and there was a number of not only students but parents. They drive a little too quick, and I don't know how. We'd have to really talk to people about placement of speed bumps in the parking area. But you could do it on a driveway. If I'm not mistaken, we did have them at one time years ago.
Years ago, there were some. Yeah.
But the kids do fly, especially going around the back there. And then, again, not just the kids, the adults too. So it may be something we want to look into.
It's worth looking at. And it's not just in that road, but just between parking spaces, because
there's enough
kids sort of jutting out and someone's going, they're never going to see them, and
So it is worth looking into.
It's funny because I was at the baseball scrimmage tonight, and I had exactly this conversation with one of the parents about somebody driving too fast on the back road over here, because we were all up here for a Saturday for a scrimmage also. It was two scrimmages back to back, and there was somebody driving too quick up here.
When there's events here, there's people walking up and down the driveway through the parking lots. There's a lot of movement, and it is an issue.
And combined with that other issue about adequacy of sidewalks, the combination.
People walking on the road.
Serious problem.
It's the only place they can walk.
Right.
But what if you moved the fence closer to the road and you made some kind of little walkway on the other side of the fence so they could walk inside the fence?
There's options like that. Yeah.
Every time I go up that and I see kids walking,
What, along the upper driveway?
Yeah, along the driveway by the baseball field.
Yeah.
A lot of kids walk there.
It's amazing, but people walk everywhere. You could put a sidewalk down, they'll walk in the road.
Yeah. Why don't we take a look at that? We'll see if we can.
And where we can sort of get some sort of free consulting is we speak with our insurance brokers, the Bank of America guys. That's a service that they do.
Yeah.
They'll come in and they'll do a
Traffic
traffic audit, whatever, safety audit, and make some recommendations that we can see, what makes sense.
We
Our
could
local
probably
law
ask
enforcement would also assist with
Whatever,
that.
that's right. I mean,
Our
whoever,
police
there's
forces will ask us
enough
for
qualified, people
would
who will
assist.
do it.
They have traffic control officers in all the
Do
departments,
you
so.
want them in?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Curriculum?
Yes.
curriculum met?
Yeah, we met March 10th, and we had two presentations, one Jeff Charney on another physics course, which he feels fills in the need. It's a 12 for seniors. It'll be a physics 2. Is he going to come and present that for us at all? He hardly
we
needs
may-
to.
we
He went
may-
very quickly with us on the curriculum. There was a hole. The kids didn't have an opportunity to do an advanced physics unless they were going into an AP. So he wants to give them an opportunity to take a J level. And he said there's need for it. There are enough youngsters there who would like that second year of physics. So it just sounded like plugging up a hole, giving the youngsters the opportunities that they need. And that was a very quick presentation because there were very little questions. We all said, yes. The other one, we will have a presentation, and that will be from Mario. We're still not finished with the opt-out proposal. And he did a very in-depth study and proposal to us with all of his pros and cons. Academically, it was very well done, I thought, very well done piece. But I think he wants to present that, doesn't he?
Next time.
That'll probably come up at the next meeting. Okay. Any other, can I ask you, is there a second year of chemistry also? Is there a reason for us just to do a second year of physics, or should we be looking at second year of chemistry and maybe a second year of biology?
Well, there are
Let's see.
elective courses that students can take in those areas. But the other part of the physics is that the physics, integrated science / physics is the entry-level course. So this physics 2 would be a way for students to get a full lab science physics experience, having had exposure.
Without it being an AP.
Without it
that
being
sounds
on
like
grade
a problem.
We'll take this offline, because I don't understand the difference between that
Okay, well,
and the
I'll
second
send you-
level of chemistry. So
I'll
I
put
don't
out
I don't
something
understand
in.
it, but I don't want to tie everybody up here. Laura, you had a question, I'm sorry.
Well, no, I just wanted to add to what Fran was saying when he made the presentation, because we combined integrated science with physics for the upcoming year. There were kids that have already taken integrated science that don't have a place to go, and this gives them a place to go and get physics in on their, on their program, on their curriculum, on their transcript when they go off to college, and give them that full year of lab science. So he's combining a couple of different needs with the physics too. So it fits the needs of students that are at a J level physics 1, going on to physics, or students that this year did integrated science, then can go on to physics 2. So it will fit both the K and the J kids being able to take that second year. So it's more specialized than just saying, chemistry or following chemistry or bio.
I'm going to ask the same question.
Yeah, I think
If I
we
take
want to see the
integrated,
whole-
and we won't address it here, but I would ask the same question. You go integrated science, why not go to chemistry, a second level or another level of chemistry?
I think you want to
'Cause
look
there
over
might be
the
some-
chemistry, and curriculum could do that.
Yeah, I'd have to look at the whole thing, because there might be some kids that would be more inclined. Physics is a specialty, just like chemistry is. I mean, there might be some kids that would be more inclined in the chemistry program than they would be in physics.
Area
But I think
Some
I
kids
think
are
the
daunted
handout
by
that we were given would explain that to you.
Yeah,
So if you take a
we'll
look
get
at that, yeah.
I'll get that later.
And then the other thing is that the teacher curriculum committee also met, and I was at that meeting, and the same presentations were given, both on the opt-out and the physics 2. And some of the things that came up at that meeting were the time frame and deadline to introduce new classes, and that the teacher curriculum committee is made up of a teacher from each department in the school, and that it was very important for them that what happens at their committee does get heard by the board.
Okay. There are minutes from that meeting?
Yes, and those minutes from that meeting will be distributed into our board packets in the
Okay.
future.
All right.
Paul, will Laura be able to attend those? I should ask her directly. I'm doing it through you. That
I
it would
have
be
been.
wonderful if she-
I
has
have
been.
been. I've been attending.
I
I've
think they
been
have
to, I think,
Great.
about 3 meetings so far.
There's a charter for
And-
that, or bylaws, and we're supposed to have a board liaison to that.
Yeah.
But you and I had this discussion about, are there other committees out there that are expecting a board member to be
That's
present?
when the teachers themselves always appreciated having a board member. That
Right.
was important to them.
But my question was, are there others that were supposed to be represented at, that, maybe,
Not that I'm aware of.
that, and you, I-
PTO, we
Well,
don't
we're-
have to be, but it's one that we would be invited and welcome.
Okay. Any other comments on curriculum at this point in time? We do attend the PTO, I think. Don't we?
You're attending? Are you attending it?
I'm not, no, I don't,
Who's
but I could.
attending?
I've been attending.
I think
Oh,
Laura.
Laura.
When's the next PTO meeting?
Well, we had one for March 20th, but that got canceled. So the next one, I think is after the election already. I'm pretty sure, or on election day.
Yeah, well, we-
Actually,
Laura and
I
I
have the
talked about
calendar.
it. The problem, the 20th got canceled, but then there wasn't a time between then and the April 15th when there was going to be the
Okay,
budget.
the next PTO meeting is April 17th.
Right, so it's 2 days after the election, so there wasn't a chance to go address the PTO then.
Well, we did address the PTO.
But you addressed the PTO through
We
the-
had the executive board members and presidents from all the regional PTOs.
Right.
I guess it was last Thursday, perhaps?
Yes, yeah, it was last Thursday morning.
Which was the 20th.
Right, but the PTO membership of the high
Right,
school
did not get
did
that.
not get to have that presentation.
Did you ask, speaking of PTOs, did you or did someone ask them at least with their emails to send out some information on the budget?
Yes, they will be supportive of doing that.
Okay.
And and again, since, getting that information in an email, out on the email blast with the link right in there that people can tap into, I think would be very helpful.
All right. With that, we can move on to the policy and regulation. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because we're going to be discussing the policies later on. Basically, we met, we reviewed and talked about the feedback that we'd gotten at the last meeting with regard to facilities use. Based on that, what we were going to do is identify groups, target groups that are coming up to the school that want to use facilities. We're going to go talk to them. We're going to find out what their issues are and how this policy would affect them and what we can do working with them in terms of helping to fund the ongoing upkeep and maintenance of the fields. We're also going to be developing through the business administrator and then the grounds crew here, the actual costs, estimates of costs of maintenance and replacement of the field. So we'll get some idea of that. So have cost information, which is based on actual use. That was the facilities use discussion. We had discussions then that went into the details of some of the policies that are coming to you tonight. We spent a lot of time on, and so just to, you're aware of it, there are 3 policies coming forward tonight for first reading, and there's 2 that are coming forward for second reading. And we spent, on the first reading ones, we spent a fair amount of time discussing the inappropriate staff conduct policy, the specifics of the wording in there. It's like any of these policies, when you open them up and you start to read them, there's always more questions that come up about, well, what does this mean, and well, how is that supposed to be interpreted? And so we spent a lot of time talking about the inappropriate staff conduct policy. You will see in your packet a revision to that. We'll have more time to talk about that later, and I'll brief you on that. And then we did also then finalize the language on the job descriptions policy, which we had some minor changes from here, and that came back as a second read from the discussion that, in terms of changes that were made as a result of the discussions at the policy committee. And you have that in the packet that you got tonight, this folder. So there was a discussion on the job descriptions, and we changed, based on some of the feedback we'd gotten at the last meeting, we changed, I think it was the second sentence in here, to allow more board involvement in the review and possible modification of job descriptions. So we'll have, at board discussion time, we'll be able to go into that in greater detail. Any questions on policy? Don't get into the details of the policy because we're going to have another discussion on it in a few minutes. With that, we can move on to community relations, community and business relations. Anybody here? Laura?
Okay. We met on March 5th, and Lou was at our meeting, and Fran, and we, one of the things that we started out with was the tile floor, and we came up with a statement regarding the tile floor, which says basically that the main entrance will be closed for the summer for the replacement of the tile floor due to poor workmanship or poor installation, I don't remember which word we used, and that the back charge for that would be going back to the construction project. We talked quite a bit about the use of school facilities, a very important topic, and that we would reach out to the different local groups that use the facilities and work with them. The other item that came up was local scholarships that are offered to seniors, and Dave Peterson was at our meeting for a discussion about that.
Great, thank you. Any questions? Okay. With that, we'll close the report. I'm sorry, the 50th anniversary we've already talked about. So with that, I'll close the reports and presentations. We can move on to the first opportunity for the public comment. Now, these comments would be directed at agenda topic items only. That is on the business part of this meeting, separate from the budget discussion that we had prior to this. So if you have comments that you'd like to make on agenda items, please come forward, state your name and address. You have 5 minutes. Anybody have any comments? Hearing none, we'll move on. We can move on now to board discussion. 3 topics that I wanted to cover. Let's start off with the board policies first of all. This is pretty much the game plan that we set at the last meeting. We had 2 policies at the last meeting that we discussed, one which was job descriptions and the other one which is employment of the CSA, which we're bringing back to you tonight for second read. The employment of the CSA really had no changes requested at the last meeting and no changes were made. The job descriptions policy, which is in the package that you have, which is policy 1400, had a change that was made, and we considered it to be a minor change in the second sentence. If I can get to it. The second sentence of the first paragraph, and it was modified, as you can read it here if you want to. The superintendent shall prepare job descriptions for review. Modification is needed and approval by the board for all other employment positions created by the board. The language that was really added in there was to provide the opportunity for the board to review and make modifications to job descriptions as they came forward for approval by the board. So that was the change and modification that was made to that. You want to talk about them, or you want to? If you want to I can open it up. We can do them one at a time. If you have any questions on that, catch me as we go through it. I'll just keep it going on a roll unless you want to.
I did on this one. I wasn't very happy just reading the sentence, and I wondered if you could just to make it a little more legible, just insert numbers before these things. Shall prepare job descriptions for 1, review, 2, modifications as needed, and 3, approval by the board.
Or we can put them in bullets. We can put them in bullets.
Or bullets, because the way it reads now, it doesn't read very, it's kind of clumsy to read the sentence the way it's written.
So we'll bulletize the review modification as needed approval. If nobody has any objections to that, that's the language that will be changed, so it's just clearer to read. Does anybody have any problems with making that change? So we'll just keep it as a second read item with that modification. Okay. The next item then, I'm not going to spend any time talking about the employment of the CSA. That was a modification that was made prior to that. There's essentially no changes in that. The next thing I'll talk about is inappropriate staff conduct. That's a first read policy. It was brought to you the last time. This is the 5th or 6th time it's come back to this board. It's gone through a couple of generations of policies. It's gotten better, I'd like to say. This policy was revised, as you can see in the yellow text. It's a little hard to know what was there originally, but the yellow text indicates where things were revised in policy 3281, which is inappropriate staff conduct. These revisions were based on the input from the policy committee. And Rob, your comment about reviewing the mays and the shalls did make some changes in there. The one I would point out that did not change, that you may pick up on, was in the first sentence, because upon reading it, it really is intended to be a may as opposed to be a shall. Bernie did research in detail on the definition of the words will and shall seems to be more of a mandatory requirement, and will seems to be a little bit more, not quite so like mandatory. And so we've adopted the word shall as necessary. Lastly, I would point out, just on this one, because of the sensitive, this has gone around and we've had a lot of discussion on this. This was reviewed by Strauss Esme, Dr. Nicastro today, and he agrees with the language changes that were made in here. Okay, so we have his agreement on this language changes also in this policy at this point in time. So those were the changes. And I don't want to go through each one of them individually. We did some things to try to clean up the language so that the words report, for instance, showed up numerous times, and it was a little confusing reading of what the word report meant, and a couple of, which report was this and which one was that. So we tried to put adjectives in the front of those things to make them clearer. We also changed the words from report to inform in some cases, so it was clear. We also made some things more clear that these things were going to be actually done, or were actually required, and were mandatory. So, things like in the second sentence of the paragraph at the bottom of page 1 of that, where it starts off, in the event the information alleges conduct, that became a shall inform the superintendent, and I think prior to that had been a may inform or will inform, but we made it stronger in terms of what was going to be done there. So we think this is better sense. The last thing I'd point out to you then, with regard to policy, if you have no questions, I'll just keep on a roll, is policies 1510 and 1523, which are the 1510 is rights of persons with handicaps, and then the second one is the comprehensive equity plan. You can see highlighted in yellow the things that have been changed or added into these, and these are considered to be fairly minor modifications. Those we're bringing to you for first reading. We can accept them tonight. You can go back into your read them more casually over the week. You can come back and say, wait a minute, I've got a lot of problems with this, and we can then discuss that at the next meeting, and we can take it off for second read at that point in time and bump it back to first read or to other modifications. So before we can spend a lot of time talking about it here, or we can just wait. You can let everybody get a chance to read it more carefully rather than trying to do it on the fly here, okay?
Well,
we'll come back to you next time.
It's not meant to be overly wordsmithy. Just where it's enforcement, I just noticed, don't we have more than one vice principal here?
Yes, we do.
So, I would just say,
Which policy are you on, Ron?
I'm sorry, on the second one, I think, the handicap thing. It's just where it says enforcement on the second page. Either is it assigned, Fran, to a specific vice principal?
It is, but it does rotate. Sometimes it's one year, and then the next
year.
Well,
then listen, I don't want to get
Take a look at it.
Maybe no. I'm just saying a vice principal, not the. We have more than
that's a good point.
we have more than one.
That's good.
You can take a look at the rest of the policies and send emails.
Good catch.
The easiest thing is send them to me, or to actually send them to
Send them to me.
to Fran or Brown to give feedback, and we'll then take that and incorporate that in so that the policy committee can take a look at the aggregate of the feedback before we bring them back to you for the second read. With that, do I have any questions on? Oh, by the way, we did pull a policy. We had another one that was going to come to you for first read, 1530, I believe, which we pulled. It has to do. I'm drawing a blank on which one it was, but we'll bring it back to you, Bernie. You made questions on one of the paragraphs. Pretty serious. Equal opportunity policy. That we're going to take another look at that. Some of the language in there, and we'll bring that back to you probably for a first read. It would have to come as a first read at the next meeting or the meeting after that. So with that, do you have any questions on the policies that we're coming forward with right now? Because these are going to be voted on tonight for first read and second read at this point. All right, with that, let me move on now to the next thing. I want to have a short discussion on the CSA evaluation process. I absolutely do not want to get into any of the content of the evaluation material, okay? So just be careful. We're not going to talk about evaluation. But the reason I wanted to talk about the process is because there's a fair amount of activity that needs to occur, let's say in the next 3 to 4 weeks, in order for us to complete the CSA evaluation. I just want everybody to be alerted to that. And also to just let you know the forms and the methodology which we're going to be working through. And Jerry and I have worked real closely over the last couple days trying to put all this together for you. So with that, I'll pass out 2 things, one of which is a schedule. Let me just pass them down that way. Sorry. Pass these down that way. 2 different schedules of things. so sorry. I will correct you. Here, pass it around. Pass that around. Now, just going back to the first page, because I really want to start here with the schedule. It's a series of actions and either dates where things actually occurred or planned dates. We issued the CSA, in the process that we're following is the CSA evaluation that is recommended by the New Jersey School Board Association. And it divides things into two categories, one of which is progress towards district goals, which is part one, and evaluation of leadership skills, which is part two. We, as a board, individually provide feedback on part two, which is the evaluation of leadership skills. Dr. Stromsen completes progress towards district goals. It's her responsibility in part one, and then she sends that to us, and we then provide her with feedback as to how we think that has occurred. We agree or disagree and provide comments. So on March the 5th, we issued from here, I issued to each of you the part two of the board evaluation, which is the part that speaks to evaluation of leadership skills, and requested your input, and I think we gave you till like the 18th or 19th of March or something like that. On March 19th, we issued part one after Dr. Stromsen had provided the input. And these were the goals that, if you recall, we completed, finalized in the November time frame of this year. So a little bit later than we would have liked, but nonetheless they were completed, and that's what we're working on, which is goals that were completed in November, which was then March 1. We requested feedback from you on part two between March 18th, and that's really been completed. Between the 18th of March and the 20th of March, all the feedback has been received from the board members that we're going to receive with regard to part two. We're in the process, and I ask you, we sent it out last week, part one, the 19th. I asked for feedback on part one from you by today. I apologize if I confused anybody, because I noticed that the email said by Monday, the 25th of March, and I looked at my calendar and I realized that the 25th of March was a Tuesday, so if it confused anybody, I apologize for that. But if you haven't sent that in, and I think we have received many of them, if you haven't sent that in, please take the time to do that soon. We will be, because it's important for us then to get on to the next step of this, okay? So I just want to kind of bring you up to speed in terms of those are the things that have been done. The next thing that we're doing, and Jerry and I are going to go through this, is we're going to review the input that we received from the board with regard to the part ones and part two, and we're going to put those into a summative evaluation form that is used by the New Jersey School Board Association. I'll go through that in a second. And we're going to be doing that over the next couple of days to the end of this week. We'll probably distribute that out to you sometime, my guess is by the 31st, which is, what's that, next Monday? We'll distribute it. Pete, for those of you who are on email, or those of you who would like a paper copy, let me know and we'll get you a paper copy, okay? And you'll then have the summative evaluation form as prepared on the New Jersey School Board Association form, as summarized by Jerry and I. And I'll go through that form with you in just a second. We have to meet as a board after that time to go through that summative evaluation. And you guys, everybody here, we discuss it. You get an opportunity to say, I think that is good, I think that's wrong, this is what I think it should say, whatever you want to say about it. But at the end of that time frame, at the end of that meeting, which is going to occur hopefully on the 7th of April, in an executive part, we have to come to agreement on either this is a summative evaluation, this is the summative evaluation as modified, based on an agreement that we have at that meeting, or two, we can't come to any agreement. Okay, if we can't come to any agreement, here's the path. I want to lay this out so you understand. The path forward at that point in time is to simply provide all the feedback with a cover note that would then go to Dr. Stromsen and say, this is the evaluation from the board for 2007-2008. That would include all the feedback, and I will, on the when we go through the summative evaluation discussion on the 7th of April, we'll have that for you so you can see what that would look like, okay? It's basically the form with all the comments and everything. I would like to avoid that at all possible because I don't personally think it provides very good information to Dr. Stromsen with regard to evaluation. So that's then, on the 7th of April, the goal would be to finalize it and to come to agreement on how we're going to proceed from there. After that point, there needs to be a discussion that's generally held by myself and the personnel chair and the vice president with Dr. Stromsen. It could be 1, 2, or 3 of us. We'll figure that out later. When we get to sit down, we get to go through the material with her in a closed-door session, like wherever in her office. From that, then, we then have a full board meeting after that, and this is where this gets a little dicey. Because we then have to come together as a full board with Dr. Stromsen in an executive session to go through all the material. At that time, since she will have had a chance to think about it and review that, she'll then have a chance to provide feedback at that point in time, verbal, written, with regard to her comments with regard to the evaluation. So it's a discussion. She gets clarifying points, and she can also provide feedback. The reason I said it's a bit dicey is because I wanted to provide a week of time between that summative evaluation when we discuss it, when I discuss it, and Jerry and Peter and I discuss it with Fran. Between that time, which is kind of tentatively scheduled for the 9th of April, to the meeting, which is sometime like the 16th of April. Now, we have to have that meeting, the special board meeting, that we're going to have to discuss this with Dr. Stromsen in an executive session. And it's going to have to occur. I understand the election is on the 15th. It's going to occur after that. I talked with our attorney today. The new board does not become effective until, even though there's been an election, the new board does not become effective until after the reorganization or at the reorganization meeting. So we can effectively meet as a board up until the date of the reorganization meeting, which I believe is scheduled for, I want to say the 22nd of April.
The first
It's a Monday or Tuesday. I think it's actually
That's the spring break week.
That's right, which may be
A lot of us could very well be away.
which may be a problem.
No, according
And
to
we-
the district calendar, the next one is May 5th, the next scheduled one.
Well, that can't be because...
I'm just saying that, on the calendar.
Right. So we're going to have to determine when that meeting is actually going to occur. I checked today, and I thought it was on the 22nd of April. But regardless, to the point that Rob just made, there may be a lot of people out that week.
That's what I have,
Pardon?
22nd.
22nd. So we may need to move that around to make sure we can at least get a quorum. Pardon?
Maybe the 29th.
Maybe the 29th may be a more easily targeted. I will tell you, it has to be before the 2nd of May, because that's by law when the reorganization meeting has to occur by, okay? So sometime between the 15th and the 2nd of May, we're going to have the reorganization meeting, and sometime between that, we're going to have another special meeting before that we're going to discuss and go through then this final evaluation with Dr. Stromsen.
Can you have them on the same day, Paul?
Yes, you can. You can have the current board, and then you could have meet, and then right after that, you could go right into the reorganization meeting. So you could potentially schedule it like that, and apparently that's been done. There's people have done that kind of thing. Makes sense.
Might be easier to
Maybe easier to do it that.
separate dates.
I would almost like to separate it, because I think there's an importance to the evaluation that needs that, and almost stature to it, that needs to be done in a separate meeting to provide time and make sure it doesn't get hurried. So,
But it is unusual that this year we have a spring break at that point.
Yeah.
We just don't at that time.
yeah, you're right. My experience is that you're right, and there will always be something unusual about this time of the year, because there's always the election, and it always gets a little bit kind of strange about when things can be done and when things can't be done. So that's then, I just wanted to step you through this schedule. The other thing I want to take you through is this form. This is the form that we're going to use with regard to the evaluation process. The form basically breaks down into 3 sections. There's a lot of words on here. We'll fill in the dates and things like that. And we'll get the spelling correct also, so I don't want to hear about typos. We're going to put in indicators of pupil progress, which is part of the evaluation process that Dr. Stromson has provided us. We'll also talk about progress towards district goals. We're going to list individual goals that we've been provided feedback on. I guess there's, what are there, 7? 6 or 7. And then we're going to list the status. That is, we know she'll provide us with her assessment, and then we'll provide you with the feedback from what the board members said with regard to the assessment. We've had some comments back, and if necessary or if needed, we'll provide some of that in there, but probably not a lot. It's going to be kind of, did we agree, did we not agree that Dr. Stromson has properly evaluated those goals. And we'll then have that listed here. The next thing is then, so that's the progress towards the goals. The next thing is then the executive skills. That's data that is derived from Part 2. Just to give you a sense of this, we have, like I said, I think we've received all the feedback that we're going to have on this. We're going to, I think the best approach on this is the goal of this is to provide help and to provide feedback. And in that, you're going to break it down into two categories. There's strengths and there's areas for opportunity or for improvement. And that's what, as recommended by the New Jersey School Board Forum, that's what we're going to do. We're going to identify 3 or 4 strengths. We're going to possibly, if necessary, include comments where there's been comments made that would substantiate or support those strengths and provide clarification with regard to those strengths. We're also going to provide, depending on what we get and how it gets evaluated, 2 or 3 or more areas for growth or possible improvement, and we'll also provide clarifying points for those. These are going to be based on those things that seem to be most prevalent. So if, and same thing with the strengths. So if, maybe one person said something that is a great strength, that may not make it into the evaluation, because what we're looking for is this board's input into the process. And so we're looking for a collective view that says, a majority view that says, hey, this is where we see some strengths, and as a majority, this is where we see some opportunities. And so we're going to try to synthesize that. Now, when we come together for the summative evaluation, you'll have the complete set of this, so you'll be able to see it. But this is what we're going to pull out of it, and you'll understand why we did it at that point in time, how we broke it out. And that's going to then break down to a couple of strengths, a couple of areas for improvement that we would then have for Dr. Stromson. And that would then be with some supportive comments in both of those, and that would then be the discussion that we would have then that we're targeted right now for in the executive session of the April 7th meeting. Any comments on that? Jerry, do you have any? I'm trying to summarize our discussions on this as best I can.
Very well. I think the only thing is just to reinforce the fact that when you're doing goals and looking at goals, and it's not always clear, but there was an agreed upon set of evaluation criteria, and that's what you should be using, not necessarily your view of the goal being met or not, but whether or not the criteria that we established and agreed to was met and done, the steps that were laid out, the action items completed, those types of things. That's the focus for that Part 1. And I think Paul said very well for the executive skills. But also, when we meet as a group, when we see those things, then hopefully we can decide what might be a good action plan or some way in which we can provide opportunities for Dr. Stromson to improve upon those areas that we've identified or targeted for as opportunities or personal improvement, whatever. But that our board would then decide, hopefully collectively, as to what steps we might want her to take, or programs or courses or whatever things that might be out there to help improve upon those areas.
Okay, questions on that? Okay. So if you haven't filled out Part 1 at this point in time, please try to get it to me and Jerry in the next couple of days. I will take it any format that you have. Electronic, I'll take a handwritten copy. I will come to your house to pick it up. Okay? I'll send a courier. I'll send one of my sons over to get it. Okay? Whatever format you want to get it in is fine. Okay?
I say that just because I send you an empty format last time.
Let me tell you, it's not the only one. We've gotten, anyway, whatever is easiest for you, because some of us, I know, we can do the stuff online, some of us can't. some of us at some point in time, and I will tell you personally, I like to read these things in handwriting. I like to see the paper and write things first before I do anything with the computer, so whatever's easiest for you. That's the process that we're going through. So we have some dates. These are target dates. I will tell you the dates are going to move, because I looked at this, when I did these dates, and Jerry and I did these, we just kind of said, what could we do? Not to say, are people actually available on all these days either, so, because we haven't checked people's schedules and things like that. So things like, to point out, the 9th of April, summit evaluation with Dr. Stromsen. I don't even know what her schedule is. She may even be in town. She may be on vacation. I don't know. So we'll find out, and we'll do our best to hit these dates as close as we can.
In particular, you've asked for a special board meeting on the 16th, though. That's on the schedule. So you need some point to confirm.
Actually, it's the 16th or before the reorganization meeting.
Okay.
So we're going to have to define that date, and we're going to Rob's point. We're going to steer around whatever spring break there is as best we can. We're going to try to make sure we get maximum board attendance at that meeting. I certainly want everybody here to whatever extent that we can. Questions? Okay, I want to go now to the board self-evaluation. I guess in some way I apologize on this, because I thought we'd have had this discussion by now in terms of the board self-evaluation. But there's a lot of things that we've been working on that seem to me to be a higher priority than getting the feedback rapidly on the board self-evaluation. You'll remember in the early January timeframe, we all diligently, or most of us diligently, filled out a self-evaluation form and sent it down to Gwen Thornton. And Gwen Thornton staff was going to then summarize that and bring it back. I talked with Gwen. I didn't talk to her. I corresponded with Gwen sometime last week. I've corresponded with a number of times about when that would be ready and when she would be able to bring it to us and talk. And the best time for us to do that, in her advice, is now in the spring planning session that we should have. And I'm going to just suggest to you that we have a planning session sometime in the end of May, beginning of June timeframe. And the reason for, and it actually makes sense to have it at that time, I would personally have thought maybe earlier, but one of the things that we have to do for New Jersey CUSAC is we have to have, as a board, and then individually, professional development objectives for ourselves, as I understand it. And I'm not quite sure what that means yet. We'll figure it out. But the board self-evaluation that has been filled out will help feed into that development or professional development plans, thank you, programs, whatever it means. And so it kind of makes sense to do those two things together, and the plan now would be to do that board self-evaluation feedback. We've already done the evaluation, but then to get the feedback and to go through it sometime in the end of May, beginning of June timeframe when we do a goal-setting session for this board. Okay? That's where we are on that. Any questions on that?
Just on a funny note, last time I said with the goal-setting group, we brought someone from the outside, and we had purple papers and pink papers, and we had charts, and we came out. The one thing that we came out with was, we'd like a new auditorium, please. And look where it led us. So be careful when you set goals. We might have a third story on something if we're not aware.
We will have, we're going to organize,
This one?
the fact is, in order for you to have it by the end of May, you really need to start the process now to start to develop that. And so we're going to start the process of putting together kind of a planning session that's going to occur sometime towards the end of May, beginning of June. Jerry, is that the kind of time frame?
It makes sense.
Yeah.
You've got to do it in advance, like you say.
So we'll do it in that time frame and at that, pardon?
The last time it kind of slipped, because
Right.
we didn't start early enough, and you wind up getting...
Slipped into the July time frame before we get started on it, and then we didn't get goals until November completed. So we're going to do it this time in May and June for goals for this year. And fortunately, we have goals from this year to work off of, which I think you'll find will be helpful in terms of trying to set them for next year also. Okay. I hope that didn't run on too long. I don't like to normally speak a lot, but I wanted to just kind of bring everybody up to speed on two things, the CSA evaluation process and then where with regard to the board evaluation. Okay. With no further questions, you want to move on to action items? I would. Can we get a, are any of the A's items that people would want to have pulled for voting on separately? And I will point out to you that there is an A7, which is in the pink sheets that you had in your walking items, which has to do with policies. And they're the policies as I described to you before, okay? For first reading and for second reading, and they're listed there for you to read. Do I have any of the A's that people want to pull to be voted on separately? Hearing none, can I get a motion on the A1 through A7?
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion on A1 through A7? Now, before we go, has everybody sure that they attended the meetings on April the 4th, February 4th, 11th, and 20th? Because we're voting, and the same thing with regard to the executive sessions, because we are voting on those minutes, and you need to make sure you're at those meetings.
Those meetings I made, I left later, than the 28th.
Okay, I just wanted to alert you to it, all right? Can I get a roll call vote on A1 through A7?
Mr. Binder?
Yes.
Mr. Falzarano?
Yep.
Mrs. Fechner?
Yes.
Mr. Horowitz?
Yes.
Ms. Mandel?
Yes.
Mr. Pepe?
Yep.
Dr. Yaggett?
Yes.
Dr. Seeley?
Yes.
Motion's carried.
Okay, do I have any of the C's? There are no B's tonight on curriculum instruction. Do I have any C's, C1 through C10, that people want to pull for separate voting? Hearing none, can I get a motion on the C's, C1 through C10?
I'll move C1 through C10.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Do we have any discussion on the C1 through C10?
I have some questions.
Go for it.
Some of these resumes, and I'm not sure whether this can be done in open session or not, but I didn't see a lot of, I'm wondering whether the resumes were completely filled out. Education's lacking on some of them, and I'm not sure whether I'm missing something, or go to the first one, in the green packet. There's no indication of a certificate, there's no indication of any educational background, and I'm wondering what I'm looking at.
The gentleman, first one, the gentleman,
Yeah.
in the green. This is...
This is the one you're referring to, right?
Yeah.
My God. Bus driver.
Substitute bus driver. There's no certification required.
It says substitute teacher. Is that the one I'm looking at?
Yep.
And secretary.
Which number, Jerry?
Oh, I'm sorry, C2, I should have been.
I'm sorry,
More clear.
you're right, substitute teacher and secretary, yes.
Is there,
Nicholas.
You're correct, it's an oversight. We'll get that information. I'm sure
What
he has it,
is-
60 credits.
okay, is there part of this resume that I'm not seeing, or is it just
Could
part
be,
of
it was
the?
just not been oversight, but it might not have been copied.
Okay. Is there
Well,
a
we just
certificate?
seconded. Pulled
that one then.
Do we want,
You could pull it, if you'd like to pull it.
Well, this is not the only one, though.
we'll keep asking your questions. I mean, let's just find out, maybe there's something we want to pull on all of these.
But is there a certificate, too, that would go, because would it be a county certificate, or, you could pull it, but I'm just, same thing with C5. It says substitute teacher and secretary, so I'm not quite sure which one it is.
I think they use them in both of those capacities.
But, again, I see no educational,
Well, for substitute teacher, you may not need you need a
we
certificate.
need a certificate,
A
and there's nothing, this says nothing about either, even have.
You just need a certificate, right?
The second person did work at the Newark schools, but your point about there not being an actual certificate enclosed, if you wish to pull it, and we can... if it
Unless
just
you
was an
need the
oversight
person,
and a
I'd
copy.
like to know.
Do you have others in the Cs then that we might want to pull because we don't have the complete resumes?
Jerry, I'm looking at C5, which is the CC in my packet. Am I right? And that one has the education and the degree on my paper.
Mine doesn't, sir.
Yours doesn't? Well, some
CC?
of us read, that's all.
No, CC, he's talking about.
CC.
Yeah, mine doesn't.
C5, and I went to
CC, you
CC, and
have
the education's
actual-
on the bottom of the sheet.
Maybe they're lettered differently.
Ah. Are we talking about the same
My
person?
CC does not have that.
Yeah, I think there's a little confusion.
And I meant to
Mine
tell
are
you this
numbered.
earlier. I apologize for not pointing this out earlier.
The CC that I have
It's a different
ends with
person.
something that says MSNBC 30 Rock.
Yeah,
Is that what everybody has?
yeah.
And CC, I have somebody else, a different person.
Oh,
I think
okay.
Sandy's.
There must be confusion in
Mine is
the,
different.
it was confusion
I
in
think
the
you
way
should
it
pull
was.
it
Well,
I
CC
don't think
is
we're
really
going to have a
essential.
choice on this one, because I don't think the board should be voting on something they don't have to
I
complete.
agree.
So which ones do we need to pull? Can somebody tell me?
C2 and 5.
Are there any of the other ones, Jerry, that you have questions on?
Yeah, I had questions on C10. Is that a person that currently is an instructor at the school, or is that just a volunteer from outside? This has to do with a volunteer ultimate Frisbee coach?
I do not know this gentleman as to whether he is currently a volunteer or whether he's just being reappointed as a volunteer coach.
Is he a teacher?
No.
Does somebody like this have to undergo any kind of
Fingerprinting, yeah.
criminal
they do.
background check?
Background check.
I think you
There's
should
nothing
pull
in
that
here
one,
that
too.
says...
We have to pay it.
But with the other ones you have, I thought, did I miss this one, that you indicate that subject to? Oh, you do have it there.
No, he's there.
Okay, I'm sorry. I did
They
miss
have
that
to
one.
get it, we have to pay for it.
Okay, so, but we don't know whether that's, all right.
Okay.
And,
So you're all right with C10 as it is?
yes,
All right?
and C7. What was the question I have with C7? I can't read my own writing. Okay, I can't read my note, I'm sorry.
Well, if you
It
think
says
of it,
termination.
I'm sorry? If you think of it, just call or send an email.
Do you want to pull
Okay.
C7?
No, no, no.
or-
Those people I...
Okay.
C7 is a new position for next year, or
Yes.
it's a long-term substitute teacher in the 0809?
It is confusing. Yes, 0809, meaning the coming school year.
So there's somebody who's not going to be coming back for...
That's correct.
They're taking a leave, and this is the
That's
person.
Not a leave, but a retirement.
Okay, so it's a long-term, all right. I know what my question
Until
was.
until they have their final certification, CE
Okay.
in hand.
I guess the question in general, I know, when you hire substitutes, is there, do you have the right to terminate them upon 10 days' notice or something along those lines?
There is a notice clause. I'm not sure if it's 30 or 60. It might only be 30.
Okay,
days
I
for
mean, because I don't know if you include those or not. That language in there, you know,
You just
Well,
don't call them.
We're so far in advance of the date.
I'll talk to you more about this
Long-term.
one.
Long-term.
Long
Versus
term.
short-term. I thought the same thing. I realized, well, they're supposed to show up every day.
The long-term, I know we include language that says you know, you have the right to terminate.
That should be in the contract that we
Notice.
sign.
That is-
Okay.
Yes, that would be in their
That
contract.
should be in
Okay.
the contract. If it's
Gotcha.
not, we should check. to
All
make
right,
sure
so it's just those other two then.
Yes.
Okay, listen, Jerry, you moved, and Bernie, you seconded the motion that we would move and second C1 through C10, and we decided, I think we agreed that we should pull C2 and C5. If you two agree to that pulling, then we don't need to bring it back. Okay, so we're going to vote on the C1 through C10, excluding C2 and C5. Everybody clear on that? Exclude C2 and C5, all the other Cs. Can I get a roll call vote?
Mr. Binder?
Yes.
Mr. Falzarano?
Yep.
Mrs. Fechner?
Yes.
Mr. Horowitz?
Yes.
Mrs. Mandel?
Yes.
Mr. Pepe?
Yes.
Dr. Yaget?
Yes.
Dr. Seelig?
Yes.
Motion is carried.
Okay, so you can bring the C2 and C5 back at another time. Okay, for the finance area, we have a series of Ds, D1 through D9. Do I have any of the Ds that people would want to have pulled and voted on separately? Okay, hearing none, can I get a motion on the Ds, D1 through D9?
Yeah, I just have one question on D6.
You want to move them first?
What?
You want to move it first?
Whatever you like.
Why don't you move it first, and we'll get a second, then we'll have a
Okay.
discussion.
Go move it, I'll go second it, okay?
Moved by Horowitz, seconded by Fechner.
and then we'll hear.
Okay, we have the Ds. Rob, you had a question on D6?
I think it looks, the D6, the cooperative bus purchasing, I think it's a good idea, assuming we can get some better pricing. I assume, Tim, that while the Jointure is the lead agency, there are other districts in this cooperative?
Yes.
And just the only question I have, by being a member of this cooperative, we're not precluded from making a deal on a bus on our own, or are we in the first instance required to go through the commission?
No, we're not precluded. It actually says it in the agreement.
You can be a free agent.
So if you found a good deal, you could go to that good deal.
Correct.
right.
So you're not
Fair enough.
required. So
That's
it
right.
sounds like a good deal.
Yeah. Sandy?
May I say again, are there any buses that are not diesel? Originally, we went into diesel. It was supposed to be less expensive fuel, but we also knew it was a more dangerous pollutant in the air. But at that point, they said, forget it, Sandy, there are no non-diesel buses being made. If there are non-diesels, it would be very wise of us to purchase non-diesel.
But the new
Okay, we'll do our best.
diesels have got pollution controls on them.
Yeah.
That's why they're more expensive, too. The new buses now
No, just
have...
to buy the gas is more expensive.
Well, I know that, but
You get better mileage.
The newer requirements, right.
new requirements are stricter on the diesel emissions on the buses.
Because
So
everything
that's
I
a
read
little
about
clean-
them
it's a
then,
little cleaner.
they were so much worse for us.
They have gotten better, and Jerry's right. Because they've gotten better environmentally, they've gotten more expensive. But they, within, it's probably about a year and a half ago,
Yeah.
maybe less.
Yeah, we had to buy them, too. And that usually means they're less efficient on fuel, too, with the
Yeah.
more.
It would be nice if they
Controls.
just
It's
went
cleaner,
back to
though.
Okay.
high test gasoline.
We will, Tim will look into cleaner fuel buses. I think it's a good idea.
And better mileage.
And better
Yeah.
mileage. I mean, whatever it takes. Do I have any other discussion on the Ds, D1 through D10, D9? Hearing none, can I get a roll call vote?
Mr. Binder?
Yes.
Mr. Falzarano?
Yep.
Mrs. Fechner?
Yes.
Mr. Horowitz?
Yes.
Mrs. Mandel?
Yes.
Pepe?
Yes.
Dr. Yaget?
Yes.
Dr. Seelig?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, we can move on to other business. Anybody have any other business that they want to bring up at this point in time?
Dr. Seelig, may I just add a comment about the budget? This evening, we were able to record the budget hearing presentation that we did. That will be uploaded onto the website and will be available to all the cable channels,
Okay, as well as the rest of this meeting.
the rest of the meeting as well.
Okay. By the way, I'm not sure if I mentioned it, I have actually gotten two people who came up and told me they'd seen the videos.
I have two.
So I unsolicited, I've had a lot of people come up and say, I was watching this. And so, it's out there and people are seeing it, so. This is the second opportunity for the public to comment. You can speak on any topic that you might like to. Same guidance as before, name, rank, and serial number. Forget the rank and serial number, just your name and address, and you're limited to 5 minutes.
I've got one suggestion.
Can I get-
Perfect.
Perfect.
For those of you who don't know me, I heard the conversation, very interesting. I learned a lot from these meetings. But again, I'm interested in what's going on in my town and the state. When you get to be a senior, you've got plenty of time in your hands to do that. Anyway, I think one of the things that I would suggest to the board is to keep the public informed. How do you do that? You talked about the budget and how do you apply it. But again, the newsletter should have more in there, whether you have problems, how you're solving them. Because again, there are all kinds of rumors when the building was being put together. You've got some rumors now about the floor, about the eating facilities out there. I don't know whether they're true or not, how bad they are. I think there ought to be a newsletter that goes out, giving them the facts of life, and how you correct them. And if anybody can dare challenge you and say, you know what you're doing, well then there's something wrong with it, because we all make mistakes, we all can't do the job perfect all the time. Because those that don't make mistakes are not doing anything. But again, I would suggest that very much, I hear about it from time to time. The other thing is, the question I have, who determines the number of hours elections are open? Like I look at the sheets, you've got 7 to 9, 2 to 9. And I've seen in the past, and I sit on a board there, I like the people, maybe 15% come to vote, And that's an expensive day. Okay, it might be peanuts in the light of $2 million or $10 million, but why are we open from 7 in the morning till 9? Who makes that decision?
Tom, I think that decision is actually made by the local school boards, perhaps more than we make it. I think we kind of piggyback off of that. We may have influence in that. I know when I was on the K through 8, we made a purposeful decision to open it up early in the morning. And we know there's not a lot of, but we know there may not be a lot of people, but there are people that can't vote any other time than at 7 o'clock in the morning or 7:30, and they can't get back in time before the polls close because they're down in the city. So
Yes, they do.
We do write in, we hand out extensively absentee ballots that people can then fill out and send them in. We try to get to everybody we
I
can.
understand what you're trying to say, but it's all in trying to get more people to vote to pass the budget. And it's wrong if you have to do that, to spend money, okay, from 7 in the morning to get, less than 500, 700 people to vote in the town of Waukesha. And the same thing, I think, Warren. Long Hill's the only one that's got some reasonable sense when it comes to spending money, as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
The other thing that they do us discovery, you don't have control over it, but when they have activities on school election days, you hear them lecturing to you, they should not have all of the programs they do to encourage parents to come there, because there's a lot of distraction. Kids running up and down the hallway, shows, kids coming in to find out what's going on and where do I go. Not that you're to blame for this.
I'll take the message back to whoever I hear, but you need to go talk to the K through 8s on that
I
one.
did.
Because they're the ones who organize those events. And then your feedback on voting hours, it's fine. We do, it's not so much to just pass the budget, it's really to open up opportunities for everybody.
Yeah,
I know you can think of it in other ways,
I know it
but,
sounds good, okay, but if people want to vote, they can come out and vote.
right.
The other question I have, ultimate frisbee, is that a paid position? Now, I know this guy was, the gentleman was volunteer.
Yeah,
Whoever coached it before, is that a paid job?
Well, we have actually, it's a sanctioned, national sanctioned activity.
I'm aware of that.
And they do have a coach that does get a stipend for coaching that ultimate frisbee. It's quite extensive. Actually, if you'd like to find out more about it, I'd be happy to.
Quite
give you-
extensive or
Go to school,
expensive?
and I think
Well,
we've extended
extensive.
ourselves in so many directions, because I had it out with the previous superintendent, when he says we've got 17 new courses that year, and when he says ultimate frisbee, I like it. Come on. Okay?
Sounds a little-
I just raised the question because it came up tonight. I never said, thank you again.
You're
for your-
welcome.
Thank you.
Congratulations for the job.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the public at this point in time? Hearing none, we can close the meeting. Do we need an executive session? I don't have anything on executive.
Move to adjourn?
I think we just, thank you. We have a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
A roll call vote, all those in favor? We don't need a roll call. All in favor, say aye.
Usually we went too long.
Meeting's adjourned. Thank you for attending.
We started